Okay. Hi, it's Dr. Michelle Stafford here at World of Smiles with our podcast Mixed Dentition. And today my special guest star is Wendy Foster with Brain Balance. Thanks for coming, Wendy.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so let's start off by telling me what exactly is Brain Balance for our listeners out there.
Oh, that's such a good question. Brain Balance is a program that helps kids, struggling kids, all kinds of kids that may have some behavioral challenges, academic challenges, or just social challenges that are kind of getting in the way of their everyday successes.
Mm-hmm.
So we just help to support kids and families so that they can, I know it sounds cliche, but start being the best version of themselves,
Yeah.
and that there's not as much upset in the home and that the parenting can just be more enjoyable for the family.
I love that.
Yeah.
So maybe start by describing one of the programs, or like what would it be like if I brought my kids into you, and are there certain scenarios and programs that you offer?
Yeah, so good question. So Brain Balance is a national franchise.
Okay.
And we have a program. We always start with a comprehensive assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So every family comes in, their child goes through a 2-hour assessment. And during that time, as an Enrollment Director of the Brain Balance Center in Oregon and Portland and Tualatin, I meet with the families. They fill out a really thorough intake form. I think it's probably about 200 questions or more. Everything
That's
from
great,
everything from child sort of development. When did they
Mm-hmm.
sit? When did they walk? When did they talk? To things like what are their food preferences? What are their sleep patterns now? What do they sort of like, what do they tend towards? Do they tend, like, what are sort of some of their preferences in terms of, again, whether it's food or certain clothing or just things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, finding out from the parents, what are their hot points? Like, what are their goals for their child and for their family?
That's great.
Yeah, it's really, we take a lot of time meeting with the families. We take a lot of time assessing the child.
Mm-hmm.
So during that meeting, again, the child's in an assessment with our assessor, and it's a 2-hour comprehensive assessment. So we're checking all kinds of things for where there might be some gaps in development.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we put all that information together, meet with the family, meet with the child, go through the assessment, then we can figure out an individualized program for that child.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And what's the age range that you see kids, and maybe what's the most ideal age?
Yeah, so we work with kids anywhere from 3 until 18.
Okay.
We actually have in our Portland Brain Balance Center now, we have a 25-year-old woman going through our program. So, and we always get asked for our adult program.
Right.
When are you going to work with adults? But yeah, it's 3 to 18. Sometimes those real little ones at 3 and 4, it's great to get a jump start on their development and get them in for an assessment. Sometimes we might start them with a home program, or they may be coming into the center. The ideal age is really, any age that the child is ready to commit to the program and that the family is ready to commit to the program. And so we are currently having a lot of kids now that are hitting those middle school years.
Right.
I think
this can be so challenging.
So challenging. And I think a lot of families hope, well, my son's having some challenges or my daughter's having some struggles, but they'll outgrow them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they think, oh, well, it's only elementary school. He'll catch up later or something like that. And what we know is that doesn't happen. They don't just outgrow it. It doesn't, all of a sudden, they don't just wake up one morning and something falls from the sky and everything's connecting,
Right.
perfectly and properly. So yeah, it's really any age. I mean, I don't know if that answers the question. We actually have a lot of high schoolers that are coming in now too. A lot of parents see that their child maybe has had these struggles year after year after year.
Can you describe a couple of those struggles specifically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So some of the struggles we see, even with little kids, are things like, they might be really great at memorizing all the facts about, dinosaurs or trains, right? They can remember all these amazing facts, layers upon layers of facts. But you ask them to go get their shoes and their backpack, and they either can't find their shoes or they forget to grab their backpack, and they come out and they're ready to go. And mom says, okay, where's your backpack? And they say, well, I didn't even hear you say that. So that doesn't seem like a big struggle, but when there's struggles like that are just happening over and over again, and when it's happening at home or at school, things like they might be really adept at math, but for some reason just cannot make any friends, have a really hard time. Maybe they get in the personal space of a lot of their friends, right? Or maybe they are being very distracting or very impulsive, especially during potentially transitions. So the teacher's asking everyone, okay, we're going to get up and get in line. We're going to go to library. And, your child's the child that's always bumping into the other kids in front and in back, which again, it's not that big of a deal, but it's them not being able to just attend to the task at hand.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And what about for middle school, when you're seeing those middle schoolers? I would imagine their struggles might be a little different.
Yeah, that is also a really good question, because that's when the struggles become a little bit more, there's a little more weight to those struggles, right? The consequences are a little bit greater. And what we see with some of those little kids is you ask them, well, why didn't you get your shoes in your backpack? And they say, I don't know. Well, I told you 4 times. Why didn't you, I don't know. And why didn't you get that grade on your math test? You studied, you knew all the answers last night, and yet you went in to take the test today and you got a bad grade. I don't know why I got that grade. What happens oftentimes with middle schoolers is that's happened to them so much, and that's become, again, such a pattern for them that they start to turn into, their answer becomes more, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care why I didn't do that. I don't care why I didn't get a great grade on the test. I don't care that no one's inviting me over for birthday parties or, to hang out. And they just become a little more isolated and then have challenges again, socially, behaviorally. And those academic challenges can start to really add up in middle school as they're trying, to get into the high school and on that path to higher education. Yeah. So.
And then so a parent is struggling, let's say, for instance, a middle schooler or early middle schooler struggling with some of the things that you've described. They bring their child into you, they do the assessment. Are you able to kind of describe how Brain Balance provides a program to parents and to the children to kind of provide that support?
Yeah, so one of the things we do when they do come in for an assessment is we check a lot of their processing. So we'll look and see, are there any processing delays? We specialize in development, so we have tools and certain exercises and activities where we can see, how are their eyes tracking? What is their visual process? What is their auditory processing? Is there a delay? And how can that affect their ability, again, to take in information, retain information, and then sort of regurgitate that information, if that makes sense. So a lot of the program involves a lot of sensory motor activities, things like that we do in center, some balance work, everything, again, just to help that child so that they can have more typical processing, if that makes sense. And then also the idea would be to help them self-regulate a little bit more easily too.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. What a wonderful program. And Wendy, how did you get involved in this program?
Oh,
Brain
gosh.
Balance? And how long have you been involved with Brain Balance?
Yeah, so Brain Balance, the owner of our center, our Brain Balance Center in Portland, she owns 12 other franchises, and she started the program because her son was nonverbal, low functioning, and she had tried all different types of therapy. She had tried tutoring, she had tried ABA therapy, a lot of different types of therapy, and just was not getting any results. Spent a ton of money, lots of time. She found a Brain Balance that was about 4 states away and enrolled her son in that program. She moved her whole family while her husband stayed behind to work to Georgia for 6 months to enroll her son in the Brain Balance program, and saw such amazing results with him that she said, this is my calling. I have to do this and help as many families. I know. It's such a nice story. It's a beautiful story. Yeah. And they're a great family. And so they were opening up a new center in Tualatin, and they wanted someone to come in and help, support families and enroll families. And educate families in the community about the program. And so I have always been a advocate for boys, an advocate for learning through movement, and this just seemed like a natural fit for me.
Oh,
so
that's great.
yes, I've only been doing it for about 6 or 7 months now, but I'm really looking forward to staying with them for a long time.
Oh.
But, you know, a lot of the struggles that these children are having, that they are real struggles, you know, that all children want to do well if they can do well. So I guess I would say that, you know, if parents are struggling or they're looking for some support, you know, to just keep digging, you know, to keep looking in their community and see if there's something that can really help their child. And again, recognize that sometimes when those preferences really start to become patterns, they can make your child even more rigid. And so it's nice to just stop and try and figure out, okay, how can we get them to be a little bit more open to different preferences?
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
We had one family, I don't know if it's okay, but there's one family that I talked with whose son came through our program, and she was sharing a story with me.
Oh, yes,
Whoops.
Please.
Sorry,
share with our audience how brain balance has made a difference.
Yeah, well, it's just interesting because she came in and she was telling us that her son was struggling in reading and math.
Do you mind if we pause and tell me
Yeah.
how old is her son?
Oh, yeah. Her son, that is a good question.
Or approximately.
Yeah, I think he's 9.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 9-year-old
Yep,
son.
he's a 9-year-old
comes in,
son.
And his struggles.
And his struggles were reading and with math. They put him in an academic tutoring program, thinking they put him in this intense summer program. In 3 months, hopefully he'd be more on track with his reading.
Right.
Didn't find any results. They brought him into Brain Balance. And one thing we do in the assessment, like I mentioned, is we look at the eyes and see where they're tracking.
Right.
Is one eye working stronger than the other? Is one eye looking in the opposite direction? Your eyes really should track together. And she found that her son's eyes were just not tracking at all. So no matter how much tutoring they did, or no matter how much they disciplined him or said, you know, why aren't you reading?
Right, he physically couldn't do it because of his eyes, and no one had checked that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's not just a vision test. He could have had 20/20 vision.
Right.
It's more of the processing and the tracking. So he came into the program. One of her other concerns when she met with our team was that her son had never been invited over to a play date before.
Aww.
He just was having some social challenges, and the other kids just didn't feel comfortable or safe around him. And so, long story short, he went through the program. He received an honor award in math in front of his whole school.
Oh, wow.
So he's completely thriving in math and reading. And then he was invited to 2 play dates just actually in the last month.
Aww.
So, you know,
That's
as a
great.
mom, that's what you're looking for.
Right.
You don't want your child to be lonely or not invited places or, you know, feeling like there's just, I don't know, no hope to be part of the group. So.
Right. That socialization is definitely key.
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Wow. It's always nice to hear about success stories and making a difference in family lives. I know that's why we work with kids, right? So that we can help families and be a part of their journey and the success of their children. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And for our listeners and viewers out there, how can we learn more about Brain Balance? What's your website?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking. So we do have all kinds of monthly activities and events. So if they're interested, check out our website's ourbrainbalance.com.
Okay.
And that'll send you to all the centers that these owners have. We have centers in Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, but specifically the Oregon ones. We'd love to have some Oregon families come in and check us out.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, everyone who's tuned in to the podcast today. And thank you, Wendy, for being on the show. And remember, fill the world with smiles.
Blah, blah, blah. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
No.